me like a wrench to the gut. We're moving in a different direction. Bob, Garrett Williams said, not even looking me in the eye. 18 years of busting my tail for this company, and this is how it ends. I adjusted my work gloves, a habit I'd picked up in the Army that stuck with me through 2 decades in the warehouse business. The leather felt rough against my palms, grounding me while my world tilted sideways. Different direction, I repeated. And who exactly is taking over operations? Kevin Walsh, bright kid, fresh MBA from Northwestern. He's got some innovative ideas about streamlining our processes. I almost laughed, almost. Kevin Walsh, the 29-year-old who'd been here all of 6 weeks, asking me last Tuesday where we kept the safety equipment. Real innovative, that one. Kevin's never loaded a truck in his life, I said. Garrett shifted in his chair, finally meeting my eyes. That's exactly why we need him, Bob. Fresh perspective, no preconceived notions about how things should be done. My name is Robert Martinez, I'm 54 years old, and I've been moving freight since I got out of the Army at 22. Started on the loading dock, worked my way up to regional operations director through sweat, practical knowledge, and building relationships with every union rep, driver, and warehouse supervisor from here to Detroit. But apparently, none of that matters when you can cut costs by hiring some kid fresh out of business school. I've prepared a new position for you, Garrett continued, sliding a folder across his desk. Senior consultant. You'll keep your benefits, and we'll need your institutional knowledge during the transition. Institutional knowledge, like I was some piece of equipment being phased out, but kept around for spare parts. The drive home felt longer than usual. Linda was in the kitchen when I walked through the door, grading papers from her 3rd grade class. She looked up when she heard my keys hit the counter harder than normal. How was your day, she asked, but her eyes already told me she knew something was wrong. They gave my job to Kevin Walsh. Her pen stopped moving. The MBA kid who started last month 6 weeks ago, but who's counting? I sat down across from her at our kitchen table. The same one where we'd made our budget plans, celebrated Carlos's acceptance to trade school, and figured out how to refinance the house when times got tight. What does this mean for us? Linda asked. Always the practical one. They're keeping me on as senior consultant. Same benefits, probably 75% of the pay. I adjusted my gloves again, pulling them off and setting them next to her papers. 7 years left on the mortgage. Carlos needs his tools for the electrician program. Your pension from the school district won't kick in for another 8 years. Linda reached across and covered my hand with hers. We've been through worse, Bob. Remember when the plant closed in 9? We figured it out then. This is different. I built that operation from nothing. Our safety record, our delivery rates, the relationships with the union guys. That's all me. And they're handing it over to someone who thinks freight logistics is about optimization algorithms. So what's your plan? I looked at my wife of 24 years. You know me too well. You always have a plan, even when you don't think you do. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the familiar sounds of our neighborhood, the Kowalski kids next door getting ready for school, old Pete starting his diesel pickup for his 4 a.m. shift at the steel plant. Normal sounds from a normal world where people worked with their hands and earned their paychecks through sweat and skill. But things were changing, had been changing for years. The young guys coming up didn't want to learn the trade from the ground up. They wanted shortcuts, automation, efficiency improvements. They didn't understand that moving 40-ton loads safely wasn't about spreadsheets. It was about experience, relationships, and respect for the equipment. The next morning, I watched Kevin set up in my old office, the one with the view of the loading bays where I could keep an eye on operations. He hung his MBA diploma right where my safety awards used to be. Kid probably couldn't tell a forklift from a pallet jack, but he had a degree, so what did I know? My new workspace was a desk in the corner of the main office area. No window, no direct view of the warehouse floor. A clear signal that I was now advisory staff, not operational leadership. At 8 a.m. sharp, Kevin called his first all-hands meeting. The warehouse guys filed into the conference room, steel-toed boots scraping against linoleum, hard hats tucked under arms. These were my people, men who'd been moving freight since before Kevin was born. Tommy Russo, who could back a 53-footer into a loading bay blindfolded. Jimmy O'Sullivan, who knew every truck in our fleet by its particular engine sound. Anna Kowalski, who could track inventory better than any computer system. Good morning, team, Kevin said, his voice too bright for a Monday morning in a warehouse. I'm excited to implement some efficiency improvements. I've been analyzing our throughput metrics, and I see significant optimization opportunities. I sat in the back, watching Tony Benedetti's face. Tony had been our union shop steward for 15 years. When Kevin started talking about right-sizing our workforce and eliminating redundancies, Tony's jaw got tighter with each corporate buzzword. Excuse me, Tony interrupted. What exactly do you mean by right-sizing? Kevin smiled that fresh-faced MBA smile. Well, Tony, our current staffing model shows inefficiencies. We're overstaffed in several areas. Overstaffed. Tony's voice went flat. You mean laying people off?
Optimizing our human capital allocation, Kevin corrected, like that made it better.
I adjusted my gloves again, feeling the tension in the room ratchet up another notch. These guys had families, mortgages, kids in school. They weren't human capital. They were skilled workers who knew how to move 40-ton loads without killing anyone. Let me be clear about something. Tony stood up, his voice carrying the authority of someone who'd been dealing with management for longer than Kevin had been alive. These men have been doing this job safely and efficiently for years. Tommy, there hasn't had a single incident in 12 years. Jimmy knows every truck in this fleet better than the manufacturer's specs. You want to optimize? Start by understanding what we actually do. Kevin's smile faltered slightly. I understand the concern about change, but modern logistics requires data-driven decision-making. We can't rely on outdated methods just because they're familiar. Outdated methods. Jimmy O'Sullivan's voice cut through the room. Kid, I was loading trucks when you were in diapers. You think your spreadsheet knows better than my 20 years of experience? I watched Kevin's face redden. The kid was learning his first lesson about warehouse culture. Respect is earned, not assigned by title. I think we should focus on the opportunities ahead, Kevin said, trying to regain control. Now I've identified several areas for immediate improvement. First, we're going to streamline our loading protocols. I've developed a new system that should reduce loading time by 15%. Anna Kowalski raised her hand. What about weight distribution? Our current system ensures proper load balance for safety. The new system accounts for efficiency first. We can address other factors as needed. The silence that followed was deafening. Every person in that room knew that improper weight distribution could kill a driver or destroy a load. But Kevin was focused on his efficiency metrics. After the meeting, my phone buzzed with messages. Tony, this kid's going to get someone hurt. Jimmy, does he even have a CDL? Anna, my grandmother knows more about logistics. I typed back the same response to all of them, give it time. What Kevin didn't understand, what they never taught him in business school, was that our operation ran on relationships. The drivers trusted our loading crews because they knew we wouldn't overweight their rigs. The union worked with us because we respected safety protocols and treated people like professionals, not line items. Our clients stayed loyal because when something went wrong at 2 a.m., I answered my phone. 3 days later, Kevin implemented his first optimization. He cut the loading crew from 6 guys to 4, despite my recommendation to maintain full staffing during the transition period. I'd seen this before: new management trying to show immediate results through cost cutting. Bob, Kevin appeared at my desk that afternoon, panic creeping into his voice. We've got a problem. The Detroit shipment is running 3 hours behind. I looked up from the safety reports I'd been reviewing. That's the Midwest manufacturing load. Yeah, they're threatening to pull their contract. Something about delivery guarantees. I set down my papers. Midwest Manufacturing had been with us for 12 years. Their logistics manager, Jim Morrison, was a 30-year Army veteran who'd started as a truck driver and worked his way up. We understood each other. Midwest values reliability above everything else, I explained. They've built their production schedule around our 99.2% on-time delivery rate. When we miss windows, their entire operation gets disrupted. Can you call them, smooth things over? I considered him for a moment. This was exactly what I'd expected. Create a problem, then ask the old guy to fix it. I could reach out to Jim Morrison, I said. We've got history. Morrison, right? That would be great. Really appreciate it. When I called Jim that afternoon, the conversation went exactly as I'd anticipated. Bob, what the hell is going on over there? My production line is sitting idle because your new efficiency expert can't figure out how to load a truck on time. Growing pains, Jim. You know how it is with new leadership. New leadership? Jim's grunt said everything. This the MBA kid I heard about? Kevin's got some innovative ideas about optimization. Another grunt. Let me guess, cut the crew, speed up the process, ignore the details that actually matter. Something like that. Bob, I've been in this business long enough to know the difference between improvement and corner cutting. Your crew has been solid for years. What changed? I looked across the office at Kevin, who was frantically going through loading schedules on his computer. Management decided we needed fresh thinking. Fresh thinking doesn't mean much if the trucks don't show up when they're supposed to. Look, I'll give you guys another chance because of our history, but if this becomes a pattern, I'll have to consider other options. After I smoothed things over with Jim, Kevin was all smiles and gratitude. That was incredible, Bob. How did you manage that? Relationship building, it takes time, right? Well, maybe you could document your approach. Create some kind of client management protocol we could systematize. There it was. He wanted to turn 12 years of trust and professional respect into a checklist. Some things can't be systematized, Kevin. They have to be lived. 2 weeks into Kevin's reign, we had our first safety incident. Nothing serious, a minor forklift collision in Bay 3. But it happened because Kevin had reorganized the traffic flow without understanding why we'd set it up the way we had in the first place. I designed that traffic pattern after watching operations for 6 months when I first became operations director. Every turn, every intersection, every sight line had been planned to prevent exactly this kind of accident. But Kevin saw inefficiency where I saw safety. The OSHA inspector was not impressed. This traffic pattern violates basic safety protocols, she told Kevin during the walkthrough. Who authorized this layout change? Kevin's confidence evaporated. I optimized it for efficiency based on flow analysis. Optimized it into a hazard zone. You've got forklift crossing paths in blind spots, loading equipment operating in pedestrian areas. It's a miracle nobody got seriously hurt. I watched from across the warehouse floor as Kevin's face went pale. The inspector handed him a citation and a list of corrections that needed to be implemented within 30 days. The fine alone would eat into his efficiency savings. The insurance implications would be worse. That evening, he cornered me in the parking lot as I headed to my truck. Bob, I need your help. This safety thing, how do I fix it? I stopped walking toward my truck. The parking lot was nearly empty, just a few cars belonging to the night shift guys. The overhead lights cast long shadows between the vehicles. You restore the original traffic pattern, I said. It was designed by someone who'd actually worked a forklift for 20 years. But the efficiency metrics show mean nothing if someone gets killed, Kevin. He ran his hand through his hair, looking younger than his 29 years. They didn't teach this stuff in business school. No, I said, opening my truck door. They didn't. The next morning, Kevin quietly implemented my traffic flow recommendations. The loading times went back to normal. The union guys stopped grumbling about safety violations, and I started getting more requests for advice. But here's what Kevin and Garrett didn't realize. Every problem they created, every crisis I had to manage, every relationship I had to repair was teaching me something valuable. I was learning exactly how much this operation depended on knowledge that existed nowhere in their fancy databases. The relationships with drivers who'd been running our routes for years, the understanding of which clients needed what kind of handling Jim Morrison's military precision, the Peterson brothers' family trucking operation that valued personal touch, the Sullivan transport guys who appreciated straight talk and no corporate nonsense, the network of union contacts who could make or break efficiency during contract negotiations, the practical knowledge of equipment maintenance that kept our fleet running while our competitors dealt with breakdowns. All of it was in my head, built over 18 years of actually doing the work. That weekend, Linda and I were sitting on our back porch, watching our neighbor Pete work on his classic Camaro. Carlos was home from trade school, tools spread out on our kitchen table as he practiced wiring techniques for his electrical program. Dad, Carlos called from inside. Can you help me with this circuit diagram? I went inside and looked over his shoulder. The diagram showed a complex industrial electrical system, the kind he'd be working on in manufacturing plants and warehouses. See this junction here. I pointed to a spot on the diagram. In the real world, that's where most problems happen. Not because the design is wrong, but because someone took a shortcut during installation. Carlos nodded, making notes, like the safety flow thing at your work. Exactly like that. Kevin saw inefficiency in the system. But what he didn't see was why we designed it that way in the first place. So experience trumps education. I thought about that for a moment. Experience trumps theory. Education is important, but it's not the same as understanding how things actually work. Linda appeared in the doorway. Speaking of work, Garrett Williams called, wants to meet with you Monday morning. I looked at her. He say, what about? Just that it was urgent. Monday morning came with the kind of gray, drizzly weather that made the warehouse feel even more industrial than usual. Garrett was waiting in his office when I arrived, looking like he'd aged 5 years in the past month. Sit down, Bob. We need to talk. I took the chair across from his desk, the same one I'd sat in when he'd demoted me 6 weeks earlier. This time, his corporate confidence was nowhere to be seen. The board is asking questions about our performance metrics. He said without preamble, customer complaints are up 40%. We've had 2 safety violations. 3 major clients are reviewing their contracts. I adjusted my gloves, waiting for him to continue. Kevin struggling with the transition. Garrett continued. More than we anticipated. The quarterly review is next week, and frankly, I'm concerned about what the numbers are going to show. What exactly are you asking me to do? I need you to take a more active role. Guide Kevin through the review process. Help him present the situation in a way that shows we have a plan for improvement. I studied Garrett's face. The man who'd been so confident about fresh perspectives and innovative thinking now needed the institutional knowledge he'd been so eager to sideline. Kevin's in charge of operations, I said. Wouldn't it be more appropriate for him to handle the presentation? Of course, but with your support. Your expertise. That afternoon, I spent 3 hours with Kevin, helping him understand the quarterly numbers that painted a stark picture of operational decline. Customer satisfaction down 23%. On-time delivery rates dropping to 94.7%. 2 major clients threatening to leave. Safety incidents that had triggered insurance reviews. How do I present this without looking incompetent? Kevin asked, staring at the data on his laptop screen. You present the facts, I said. Then you present a plan for improvement. Do you have ideas for a plan? I leaned back in my chair. Here was the moment I'd been waiting for without realizing it. The kid was finally asking the right question. I said, but plans take time to develop, and implementation takes even longer. How long depends on how committed you are to doing things the right way instead of the fast way. Kevin nodded eagerly. Whatever it takes, I can't afford to fail at this. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table with a yellow legal pad, writing down everything I knew about fixing the problems Kevin had created, not to help him succeed, but to understand exactly what it would take to rebuild the operation properly. The list was long: restore the original safety protocols, rebuild relationships with clients who'd been alienated by corporate efficiency speak, rehire the experienced workers who'd been optimized out of their jobs, invest in equipment maintenance that had been deferred in favor of cost savings, renegotiate union agreements that had been strained by Kevin's changes. At the bottom of the page, I wrote a different kind of list. Loyal warehouse workers who understood the business, clients who valued relationships over cost savings, equipment suppliers who knew our operation, union leaders who respected practical experience, the foundation of a competing operation. Linda found me there at midnight, still making notes. Planning Kevin's comeback strategy? She asked, setting a cup of coffee next to my elbow. Something like that, I said, closing the legal pad, Bob. Her voice carried the tone of someone who'd been married to me for 24 years and could read my thoughts. What are you really planning? I looked at my wife, the woman who'd supported every decision I'd made since leaving the Army, who'd trusted me through plant closings and economic downturns, and every challenge our blue-collar life had thrown at us. I'm planning Plan B, I said. She smiled. I was wondering when you'd get around to telling me. 3 months into Kevin's management experiment, I made my decision. The quarterly review meeting was scheduled for Tuesday morning. I'd spent the weekend preparing 2 presentations. One that would help Kevin explain away the operational disasters of the past quarter. Another that would end my career at this company permanently. Monday night, I called Tony Benedetti. You still interested in working for someone who actually knows the business? I asked. Depends. You finally ready to stop playing consultant? Martinez Logistics is going to be looking for a union liaison, someone who understands that workers aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. When do we start? Soon as I finish burning some bridges. The quarterly presentation unfolded exactly as I'd anticipated. Kevin stood before the executive team, clicking through slides that showed declining performance across every metric that mattered. Customer satisfaction down 23%. On-time delivery rates dropping to 94.7%. 2 major clients threatening to leave. Safety violations that had triggered insurance reviews. These are temporary adjustments, Kevin said, sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning. The efficiency improvements will show results in the next quarter. Garrett's face had turned the color of raw brick. Temporary. We're hemorrhaging clients, Kevin. Midwest Manufacturing just terminated their contract this morning. I felt that news like a punch to the gut. Jim Morrison had been trying to give us time, but even he had limits. Perhaps Bob has some insights, suggested Victoria Lawson, our operations VP. Given his history with these accounts, all eyes turned to me. I'd been sitting quietly in the corner, taking notes on everything that was falling apart under Kevin's leadership. This was it. The moment I'd been building toward for 3 months. The clients were losing value relationships, I said, standing up slowly. They're not looking for the cheapest option. They want reliability, communication, and trust. Those things take time to build and seconds to destroy. Time we don't have. Garrett snapped. Fix this, Bob. Do whatever it takes. That's when I pulled out the folder I'd prepared the night before. Actually, Garrett, I've got a different approach. I slid one document across the table. This is my resignation, effective immediately. The silence in the room was absolute. Then I slid the second document across. And this is notification that Martinez Logistics will be competing for several contracts that come up for renewal next month. Kevin found his voice first. You can't do that. Non-compete clauses apply to direct employees in similar roles. I finished. I'm starting an independent distribution company. Different market segment, different approach. Perfectly legal. My lawyer confirmed it last week. Garrett's face had gone from brick red to pale gray. "This is unconscionable, Bob. After everything this company has done for you, everything the company has done for me," I kept my voice level professional. "You mean like replacing 18 years of experience with someone who needed help finding the safety equipment room?" I stood to leave, then turned back. "Oh, and you should know, Tony Benedetti, Anna Kowalski, and Jimmy O'Sullivan all submitted their resignations this morning. Seems they're interested in working for a company that values experience over optimization algorithms." Walking out of that building felt like removing a weight I'd been carrying for months. The loading dock guys saw me heading for the parking lot, and Tommy Russo gave me a subtle nod. They understood. In their world, you earned respect through competence, not credentials. 6 months later, I was standing in my own warehouse watching my crew load trucks with the kind of precision that comes from experience and pride in craftsmanship. Martinez Logistics had landed 7 major contracts, including 4 that had left my old company after Kevin's optimizations drove them away. Tony Benedetti walked up, clipboard in hand, wearing the satisfied expression of a man who finally worked for someone who understood the value of skilled labor. "Detroit deliveries loaded and ready," he said. "Jimmy's doing the final safety check. 0 incidents in 180 days of operation. Union happy with the contract terms. Happiest I've seen them in years. Turns out workers appreciate being treated like skilled professionals instead of overhead expenses." My phone buzzed. Text from Linda. "Carlos got the master electrician apprenticeship. Wants to take his old man to lunch to celebrate." I typed back, "Tell him we'll go to Rossetti's." The place where his dad learned that sometimes the best revenge is just being better at the job. Anna Kowalski appeared with inventory reports. "Monthly numbers are in, boss. We're running 22% ahead of projections. That new client from Chicago wants to expand their contract to include their Milwaukee facility." I looked around the warehouse, my warehouse. The equipment was newer and better maintained than what we'd had at the old company. The safety record was spotless. The drivers were happy because they were respected and well paid. The clients got their deliveries on time, every time, handled by people who understood that their business mattered. Kevin had lasted exactly 4 months after I left. The final straw came when an improperly loaded truck jackknifed on I-75, shutting down traffic for 6 hours and generating the kind of negative publicity that cost major clients. Garrett had to take over operations personally while they searched for my replacement. Word through the industry grapevine was that they'd lost nearly 40% of their client base. 3 experienced drivers had quit. The union was threatening a grievance over safety violations. Insurance premiums had doubled. My phone rang. Garrett Williams. I almost didn't answer it. But curiosity got the better of me, Bob. His voice sounded tired, defeated. "I'll get straight to the point. We made a mistake, a big one. I'd like to discuss bringing you back. Full position restoration, 20% salary increase, whatever it takes." I looked out at my loading dock where Jimmy O'Sullivan was training 2 new hires on proper cargo securing techniques, passing along knowledge that couldn't be learned from a manual. "I appreciate the call, Garrett, but I'm not available." "Come on, Bob. Let's be practical here. You've made your point." "This isn't about making a point," I said, adjusting my work gloves. "This is about building something better. Something that values what people know, not just what they studied." After I hung up, I walked out to the loading dock. Carlos was there picking me up for lunch in his work truck. My son, the electrician apprentice, learning a trade the way trades should be learned, through experience, mentorship, and respect for the craft. "Ready to go, Dad?" I looked back at the sign over the warehouse entrance, Martinez Logistics, built on experience. "Yeah," I said, "I'm ready. Sometimes the best plan B isn't revenge. It's proving that what they didn't value was exactly what the market needed." Kevin taught me that efficiency without competence is just organized failure. Garrett taught me that loyalty is a 2-way street, and my old company taught me that sometimes you have to lose everything to build something better. If you've stayed with me through this story, I appreciate it. Maybe you've been through something similar, had your experience dismissed, your knowledge undervalued, your loyalty unrewarded. Here's what I learned. The market always recognizes real value, even when your current employer doesn't. Sometimes the best response to being underestimated isn't anger or bitterness. It's building something so successful that your competence becomes undeniable. Your experience matters, your relationships matter, and there's always a plan B if you're willing to bet on yourself.